Hi, Dom here from the Packhorse Community Pub, and I'm here in the gardens of the pub. And as we know, on this Friday, the 8th of May, this was going to be full of people celebrating VE Day and celebrating and thanking all of those incredible heroes of the Second World War. And I just want to set up now what is the chat that follows, which is with an incredible guy called Albert Fenton, who 95-year-old guy, Bathonian born and bred, indeed spent his entire life in Bath other than his war service. And Albert was going to be our guest of honour today. So this chat really to look at, or to chat with Albert, find out about his incredible life. A small chance to say thank you on behalf of everybody I know who would have done it, here in person today. But no, incredible story. Talks about his service. He was 18 when he got called up. Talks about the Bath bombings ahead of that call up. He was a D-Day veteran. He went on from D-Day to liberate Belsen. Prior to that, he bumped into the King and Winston Churchill en route. Then went off to Egypt. Then went off to Palestine. Met Vera, Lynn in Palestine, and then came back and had an incredible life, back here in Bath. So that's where we're going to go next. I just want to say a huge thanks again to Albert, and when we're able to, Albert, you will be our guest of honour here. Albert, just fantastic to meet you over the wire. Huge thanks for taking the time to speak to us today. I know your son Andy is there, and he's going to potentially help and ask you the questions as we go. But you've had such an incredible life. I know you've lived most of it in Bath, apart from your wartime service. So we're going to try and get you to tell your story. I'd love to hear it, and why not start at the beginning? So I don't know if you can tell us some of your earliest memories, Albert, even from before you were called up, as a young boy in Bath.
Right, what Dom would like to do? Can you tell Dom about when you grew up in Kingsmead? When you grew up in Kingsmead, back going to school?
No, I grew up in Kingsmead. I grew up in, but before that, I lived in Little Back Street, which is now the university. Yeah. But I first went to school in Little Back Street in Corn Street. And I think I was about 4. I'm not sure of the years, but my mother used to take me to school with me danny coat that father bought for my birthday, and I wouldn't go to school without it. She had to meet me there to come home again. But that's more or less my school episode, very young. My father, we was poor, but around us we lived, and all my uncles and aunts all lived out. My grandfather lived around the area of Corn Street, Back Street, and we were surrounded by slaughterhouses. My uncle was a slaughterman, and that's how we lived it, exactly. And we used to get flooded every year, regular. And my uncle, who lived next door, he used to go by with 2 chairs, put one in front of him and one behind, and bring the other one around to get up to let the animals out of the slaughterhouses. And they'd come into a sort of a hilly hills at Lincoln Bell. That's where I drive them.
Your son was telling me about your pet goats that you used to sort of walk to school, and also you lost your dad in Yeovil one time. Can you tell us that story?
When you lost Granddad in Yeovil, what happened when you went to a holiday trip?
We used to run a football team, Kingsmead Rangers, actually. Well, we moved round to the Kingsmead flats, and we used to have an outing every year. And my dad, we caught some mackerel when we was out in the little boat. He come back, he left them in the toilets, and we buzzed off and out, and nobody could find him anywhere. But police run next day to say where he was, and my uncle went down and got him.
Where'd you been back? Been to Weymouth, was it?
Hey?
Where'd you been? Weymouth and stuff?
Weymouth, I think, yeah. I think Weymouth, a long time to remember, isn't it?
So Albert, coming forward, and you were obviously a young man when you got called up. I believe you were 18. But what was your job you did before the start of the war? What were you doing then?
Before you got called up, what was your job?
I was a milkman, and I used to drive a 3-wheel dandy to all the hotels in Bath, like the Emperor Hotel, the Hotel. And every day I used to get stuck in the tram runs. And I had to stop the tram, they let me get by him. Yeah. So,
and then
that was it really.
And then you're obviously one of the few people that can remember the Bath bombings. What's your memory of that, Albert? I guess, when was that, 1942?
What's your memory of the Blitz?
Oh yes, the Blitz. We on the first night we really got scattered with bombs and that. And next morning they told us we ought to get out in the country, so we all moved out to the country for the second night, which was firebombed. And we were lucky really, because the east remained, only had water damage. The north side had all roof burnt off, and so did the west. So they were pretty sturdy buildings, really. We were lucky. And I think that's all I can remember about the...
Well, you used to come back and check, didn't you?
Yeah, we used to come back every day. We stopped, I think, to the dry arch. Oh, we kept walking out there for about a fortnight. And Dad would come and make sure that it was all right. And, well, that's what I remember about the Blitz, really.
Yeah, and I think, not everybody in Bath will even know, but I think it was April 1942. I think it was about 400 casualties in Bath, but it's over a couple of nights at least, it was pretty bad here.
Yeah, do you remember how many casualties there was, Dad? Do you remember how many casualties there was in Bath? How many people got killed?
300. 300 killed, and they were also on the first night when there was dropping the AT bombs all around. I don't think there was anybody killed in Kingsmead Flats at all, but opposite was Kingsmead Terrace, and a week after they found the bodies of several people, well-to-do people in Kingsmead Terrace. It was about a fortnight after they found them, and of course we were all dead in the cellars.
Mm.
Yeah.
So Albert, I'm going to keep helping you to take us through your incredible life. What can you talk us through now your call up and sort of initial training?
Yeah, I got called up at 18, and my mother, she said when I was going off through the train, and my mother said, "Oh, they'll send you home tomorrow, you're too small." And I laughed at her. I got home 6 years later.
So where did they send you for training, Dad?
We went to Colchester, which was a normal thing, a 6 weeks training. And I was only there 2 days, and about 10 of us was sent to what we called the stretching camp, which was the old Butlins holiday camp, which was the first one to be built, and Scagness. And we had a strict training course, and all the instructors were all ex-footballers, that played for teams like Arsenal and Tottenham Hotspurs and that sort of thing. And we used to go for a route march every day, and they always put the chaps taller than us in the front. So we had to more or less run to catch up to them. That's the way we trained. But we trained pretty well. And I think I was the only driver there that drove my dad's lorry before the war. He had a sort of a coal-sack and used to get me to chuck sand over the belts when they were driving. Yes, he was queering out on it. But where did I get to? Oh, at Scagness Camp, and we had to box. They had a boxing every night, and I had to pick what the box was, and I sat in my corner, and I said to the ringmaster, I said, "You can't expect me to fight him. My cousin." Yeah. So anyway, we did fight each other. We spent the half-crown that they give us in the naffy at night and got drunk.
And so Albert, you were training to be a driver in is it the RASC, is that right, the Royal Army Service Corps?
Yeah, the RASC. You were training to be a driver now, weren't you? You drove a lot.
Yeah, I could drive actually, but you know, I hadn't drove nothing as big as a lorry in that, but we were sent to Carlisle for training, and with 19 Company, and we used to train in the Halls water with ducks. We used to learn to drive ducks, a tank. We had to drive a tank, or what else was it we done? I can't remember what else. We drove pretty well everything, but as we passed the driving test, I was the only one that could drive really, and we was moved back to Colchester, and then we formed a new company, 19 Company, and we worked along the coast right the way from Colchester to Exmouth was American camps. Everywhere you looked was camps, and we was in Blackdown, Salisbury Plain, and we used to supply these with the meat and milk and all that, and so it went on. And occasionally, one day a week, we'd get a lift to Bath by Bath wholesalers who was all travelling backwards and forwards. And we we sneaked away, 4 of us, on the back of a lorry. And he said we was going back on Sunday. So I said, yes, if you can give us a lift. He never turned up, and as it was, we was all called to the 6 of us, I think, all together. Then a few more joined us, and we was put in front of. When we got back to the camp was empty, because we were with the Canadians at that time, and we got back to camp, all right. And then the camp was empty. We couldn't really make it out, but we walked around a bit, and the military police picked us up. And he said, "You belong to the 19 Company?" I said, "We did." And all 6 of us was bunged into a jeep, and we was drove down to Gosport, where we knew what was going on then, you know, the ruddy boats and everything the way. And a lot of the chaps couldn't reverse their truck, but I was lucky. I could reverse articulator pretty easy. And I think it was about 2 o'clock in the morning we started loading, and we had to back our trucks onto an LST first, and there was 4 trucks, and the rest was filled up with tanks. And then we knew what was happening, obviously. He pulled out to sea, and the bloody sea was rough. I think we was all seasick. And in front of us on the boat, there was 4 tanks, and the rest was made of lorries. And we got to a place, sailed a place, and we learned that it was called Piccadilly. That was when all the ships were crowded and set off to their different beaches. And as I said, we was with the Canadians, so we was going to Utah, Juno Beach. Yeah, and we had to keep supplying the Canadians all the time, and we very often got lost because in one road it was only bloody lanes.
Tell Tom about how you couldn't unload because of the...
No, we couldn't unload the first night, on D-Day, because the landing ship, he had to get the tanks off first, and the tanks came off and they made a hell of a mess of the bloody beach. We couldn't get off at all. And the captain of the boat said, all right, we said, yeah, and we moved along the beach a bit, and the engineers done well. They put an iron road down for us, and then we pulled off. There was 6 fire trucks on there, and the 4 tanks, as I said. But what was on the upper deck, I don't know. But we more or less guessed what was going on. And we was with the Canadians for about 2 months, I suppose, and we kept them supplied. And one day we was called up for 2 trucks. But when we was in the Mulberry, we was with the first trucks on there, and the ships at the lorries and tanks in front of us had to go off first anyway. He went with the LST. But a ship we was unloading was just pulling away and shouting over the rails was my brother. He'd been in the Merchant Navy. Yeah, so when he shouted out, I'll see you in Antwerp. And I said, okay, yeah, tell mother you'll see me.
So, Albert, I just want to recap on some of that. What's incredible sort of little section there is essentially you were saying that before you even embarked on D-Day, you and some mates decided to sneak out of camp and go and grab some beers in Bath. And then when you got back to the camp was empty because all of your unit had made its way to Gosport to embark, but you managed to catch up with the unit and embark and essentially head off on what we now know as D-Day on the 6th of June, 1945. And then the other side, you were saying that you were helping supply the Canadians. I think you were attached to a Canadian unit, and then you bumped into your brother on the Mulberry Harbour, having not seen him, I imagine, for a number of years. So amazing sort of section of your life you've just given us a recap on. Can I ask you though, actually a couple of things. Can I ask you if you can remember how you felt when you were, headed into D-Day? And also, can you tell us the story? I know from Andy was saying how you met and befriended a guy called Tom who was part of the Canadian unit.
Yeah. Can you tell Tom? I've forgotten the first question.
Just how you felt. What was the emotion when?
What was your emotions, Dad? What was your emotions and what did you feel like when you were waiting to land? Because you spoke a lot about the noise and the bombs.
It's seasick, to be honest. We had let the tanks off first in the case, and then they moved up the bay a bit where the engineers had put down iron road.
Yeah, so what were you feeling, Dad? What did you feel? Were you scared?
Of course we were bloody scared.
Well, that's what,
We actually unloaded one ship, and then we had that terrible storm. that took. Luckily we got off the Mulberry before it started, but the Mulberry wasn't in action then for about 4 or 5 days, which was quite good really. And they built straight away we was attached to the Canadians again. Yeah, we had to go in convoy, and I was always the convoy leader. And we had to pick up an escort at the camp where the Canadians were settled down, a little way inland then. And a chap always used to run up to me. I said, "What do you keep running up to me for?" Same one. And he said, "You were the one that always got the fags."
Do you mind? So you were supplying the Canadians. You were helping to run, fuel and food up to the Canadians in the weeks immediately after D-Day. But then you went on to, I believe, Belsen, and incredibly was part of the units that helped liberate Belsen. Can you describe that, please?
You tell Dom about your next after Normandy when you went to Belsen. Remember how you all followed each other?
Yeah. We were looking before that. We were supplying the Canadians, and they ran out of everything, and we. Well, 5 trucks we had then, and it was all loaded up with the 3 items, which was the ammunition, petrol, and what else was it? Oh, food packs. I should remember that because I used to open them. But we met, and we got on quite well with the Canadians, and I took 4 trucks with me. And we got to a little village. I can't the name of the village. I can't remember. But we started to drive down the village, and a load of Frenchmen come out of they're bloody waving their guns and one thing and another. He said, "Where are you going?" I said, "We're stuff for the Canadians." He said, "The Germans were here last night." He said, "But they retook it." And he said, "The Canadians are way back." And we had to drive back another mile, and the Canadians were in the wood with tanks and everything, and everybody chucked in and unloaded us quickly.
Yeah, can you tell Don about Belsen, Dad? He wants to how you got to Belsen and what happened?
Yeah, well,
from the beginning.
We moved on. We was with the Canadians right up to Antwerp actually, and then it was easy. Because the ships were a little bit going in there and out, and we drive the camp at night, and we never had no headlights. All we had was a little white disc on the back axle with a spotlight shining on it, and that's how you drove up. We were going into this rally doings, and they stopped us, and one of them jumped on the running board, and he said, "I'll lead you to it." So we had turned around, and we had all had Arctics on. And we go back, and there was Canadians bloody out of petrol and out of everything. So we unloaded everything on the side of the road, and they come and got it. And with that, we moved on to Antwerp. We was on Antwerp race course, and that's where we were unloading the ships from the docks. It was straightforward. And I got back to camp one night, and there was our will waiting at the early camp gates. I said, "Well," I said, "I couldn't see your boat on there." He said, "No," he said, I jumped ship.
That was your brother that you've seen in the Mulberry, wasn't it?
Yeah, I got in my cab and drove back to camp, and Arceo was a nice chap actually. I told the guard, I said, "Can you bring on the CO?" I was like, take my brother up to him, and with that, he phoned up and he said, "Yes, come up," and I knocked on the door. eldest brother. And with that, we had 3 days, he had to give me 3 days leave. So we were lucky to get away with that. And we all got called up one night to drive up one night. And we pulled into this, a jeep led the way more or less. And we pulled into this place, and we didn't know where it was. And we all had a coach wagon up the front, which we didn't know about. And it was actually Belsen concentration camp. And we had to load up quickly next morning. But we was told never to give anything to eat. You'd kill them if you give them something to eat. And we shipped them all back to Brussels in Belgium. Yeah. And actually the medical chaps were all waiting on the main road into Belsen, so that they showed us where to go into the camp. And that's where I never want to see it again. Although we look at it now and it's awful really. And we was all bloody sick. Still, we managed it. We only had to take one load, but one of our chaps he said, you only done one load. He said, I had to stay behind. And he had to ship the Germans. It was more or less trying to make with him with the Dutch, with the Belgian survivors. Yeah, it was so mixed in there.
Yeah.
And they always had to lower load. And Germans, they mop their bloody hair, they put old clothes on, so they looked like Jews. But they always picked them out, and they always looked well in them. And we took them back to Brussels, and they was put in hotels. And the food they was being fed with had come from India. It was called rye or something.
Whey, no? Whey? I thought it was whey.
Yeah, whey. It was called whey. And they got them pretty quickly with food. And really, that was more or less my end of it.
That again, I was just saying that after incredibly going from D-Day on to the liberation of Belsen, I imagine it was quite shortly after the actual German surrender. Can you actually remember the moment of the surrender?
Yeah, obviously after Belsen, or from Normandy to Belsen, it couldn't have been long after that the German surrender. Can you remember?
We all laughed about it. Actually, by the time the camp chaps heard that the war was over, and it took about 3 hours to sink in, and then we were still stationed in Antwerp because we had to drive everything down to Holland. They'd been robbed of everything. So we had to drive a couple of trips down to there. And then when we finished, I and 5 others were about my age. We was told we was going back to England. And we got back to England and wasn't given no leave. We finished up in, where was it, Carlisle. And we was issued a tropical kit. And then we went on the Metlock route. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, the Metlock. It was the Middle Eastern trains. By then they had trains running right across France. And we got issued for the kit. They bloody car kit, for the hot weather. And then we had to drive. They drove us down to France. They took us back to France, and we went by train all across France. It took 2 days. You know, they're different sections, and they've done pretty good here. And then we were sent to Marseilles, and we were then waiting for a ship to come in. And the Pendulum, it was what my brother was on. And they said, no, he's gone onto a tanker. And that's what we done. We had to travel, ship the Coastern Guards out of Alexandria to Carlisle, and then...
Not Carlisle.
No.
Quite right.
Cairo, yeah, with Coastern Guards, we had to evacuate them from Cairo, from Antwerp to Cairo, and then on to, I can't think of the name. There's a name that comes to me presently, the name of the doings anyway. But we had to drive across to there, and from the camp where we was, we had to drive all desert to Palestine. That was when there was a lot of trouble in Palestine. And I had the cushiest job I ever had then. I was put in charge of the army. And I was there about 3 months, I suppose. And at night we used to have we had to sleep in the armory and close our iron door, which we had on there. And that was more or less the end of my story.
And Albert, I understand you had an encounter with Vera Lynn when you were in Palestine.
Dom said you had an encounter with Vera Lynn.
Oh yeah, that was in Palestine. Yeah, but we had to go and pick them up, and they were bloody wonders, they did, because they had troops that put up a stage for us, and we didn't know who it was. And she had a bloody good concert, and she shook hands with most of us. And I was in my right hand, I ain't got it anymore. Yeah, but that was where I met Lynn, actually.
So Albert, incredible way to maybe end off your war. I mean, D-Day, incredibly, part of the liberation of Belsen, onto Egypt, Palestine, and then I guess that was the end of your war, Albert. Can you talk us through just Demob and indeed life back in Bath after the war?
Talk through Demob, what happened at Demob, and then what happened when, what job did you take on when you got back to Bath?
Yeah, we demobbed from Aldershot somewhere, and they should have probably kept the 6 weeks leave, actually, when I was dismissed. And we had 6 weeks to find a job. And I went up to the LMS station in Bath, and I said, then you work on? He said, oh, he said, yeah. He said, when can you start? I said, tomorrow. He said, good. You come in tomorrow, and you doing? And he ran the whole bloody platform, and they was coaling the engines there. And he said, there you are. He says, you got to coal the engines. And honestly, the shovel was that big, it was that long, to get it right in the furnace. I pushed the shovel into the coal. I said, oh, that's it. Only one shovel full.
Tell Dom about what you were given when you were demobbed. What did they give you when you were demobbed?
Oh, bloody, you had a choice of a shirt or a suit or a sports coat, and they just chuck anything at you. And,
it'll fit in, no doubt.
Obviously.
And Albert, I know from Andy that you obviously had the amazing fortune of meeting Gwen, and you went on to have 6 of your own children, I believe, and a huge number of grandchildren and great-grandchildren. So maybe could you just tell us a little bit about your family, but also there's a story I would love for you to tell. I know about 10 years ago you had a chance encounter with somebody you met in the war. Can you tell us that story, please?
Yeah, Dom's asking about how did you meet Mum? Tell us about how you met Mum.
Then I was working for the co-op bakery, delivering their little electric vans around the park and that. And my brother, he suffered with asthma in Odddown, and she always come to me and said, can you push the coal on a bit? And I used to go to this little office. There was no red brick bloody building still there. And I said to the girl, can you push the coal up to Odddown? I said, yeah, brother. I said, yeah. And I went there about 4 times. And in the end, I said, you could come out with me tonight. And she said, yeah. And I took her down to meet Mother and Pal, and we toddled along, you know. We were lucky. We got married. I think she was only 17 when we got married. Yeah, and we was lucky with accommodation because out Bathord, the chapter was responsible for all the inmates coming in, and he said, I've got a place for you, he said. And he told me where it was. And we had the front of a house in Balfour Dale, and we could stay there for as long as we liked. So they built a new house on site in Bath East, Elmer's Estate.
How many children do you have at Bath East then?
Oh, I don't know.
Philip and Norman, 2 at Bath East then?
Yeah, it must have been Norman. And I used to put them around Bathford in a bloody orange box. When it was snowing, you know.
And Albert, can you tell us the story, I understand it was about 10 years ago, where you had this incredible sort of encounter?
Can you tell Dom now, we've just got about the day you actually met Tom back in South Sea?
Yes, we drove down to South Sea one day for a holiday, and then we sat in this, and the 2 chaps were talking about different things, you know, and I said, what's that chap doing? He says, a Canadian. I said, I'd like to have a word with him, and we got talking, and he said, I said to him, what were you with? He said, Canadian 2nd Division, armoured cars and that. And he said, I had to escort big trucks, 4 or 5 trucks we had attached to them then. And he said, I used to run after this truck, he said, because I always knew, he said he was had fags in his toolbox. So I'll give him a couple of tins of fags, keep it going. And then last time I went, he suddenly vanished off the earth.
Exactly, but you didn't know it was Tom, did you? You didn't know it was Tom.
No, I didn't know it was Tom.
How did you find it?
I said, he said, oh, you the chap, he said, well, I said, you used to run my truck? He said, yes, I used to run like hell. He said, what's your name? He said, Tom. I said, bloody hell. I said, I'm glad I met you. And we sent a few emails to each other then, and then suddenly he vanished. And I heard that he'd gone back to Canada. Yeah.
So this was the guy that was nicking your fags back in just after D-Day. You had a chance encounter with, you know,
This was a chap.
10 years ago. Incredible.
Yeah, it was quite emotional, wasn't it, that, when you met him? It was quite an emotional
No, I bet. And then bringing us, I guess, right up to you're coming right up forward. I understand you got a telegram from the Queen about the same time, Albert, for your golden wedding. And at the time you had 6 children, and you've got 70 grandchildren, great-grandchildren. Incredible.
Dom's asking about you and I got a telegram from the Queen, didn't you, one year?
Yeah, I know.
Golden
Wedding, yeah. Yeah. We got married and we lived a good life, to be honest. You know, I had several jobs, but...
You've had a lot of grandchildren, haven't you, Dad?
Yeah, I got 62
62, well,
great-grandchildren.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, and Albert, I've got to ask, you know, and you clearly had an incredible marriage with Gwen. I believe Gwen died about 5 years ago, but you know, you were married for many, many years and very happy marriage. And you know, you're a sprightly 95-year-old. So what is the secret to your long life and a happy marriage? Any advice, tips you can pass on?
Dom's asking, have you got any advice to anyone? You were married to Mum for 64 years, and you're a sprightly, nearly 95-year-old. Have you got any advice to anyone? Have you got any advice to anyone for a long marriage and a long life?
No, I just lived the life as it was. My wife used to like bingo. I also like the Skittles. You know, we had a good life, really.
So you got no advice for anyone, and that?
No, not really. They lived like I did. Yeah.
And Albert, is there anything you would just like to say, you know, to people about VE Day? I mean, obviously we would have loved to have had you, you know, at the Packhorse pub. There would have been, you know, I'm sure, you know, hundreds of people that would have loved to have spoken to you. But any kind of message, you know, that you'd like to say about VE Day, particularly to those that are listening?
Any message you'd like to say about VE Day, people, Dad? Obviously, you were going to go to the Packhorse and you would have been doing a lot of talking like you do when we go to France, wouldn't you? So,
done a lot of talking.
We
treat the kids, we'd go around the schools.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. Dom, recently we've been going around schools. Dad's been doing talks. We've done 4 or 5 junior schools recently, obviously before close down. And Dad really enjoys that. I do a lot of the talking, and then we do a question and answer thing afterwards. So you really enjoy that, don't you? Going to the schools, you know.
It's good talking to the kids. You know, they're so funny. You get asked some funny questions. Like one day we was in the Palm Museum, and I was sat outside, and the rest had gone into the doings. And suddenly a little crowd come in, and that was French school children. And the teacher come up to me and said, could I answer some questions? I said, the school children says, call them over. And they all put the bloody hands up, of course. And one who put her hand up was, did I get killed?
And thank goodness you didn't, Albert, otherwise we wouldn't be having this chat here. I mean, can I just finally say, Albert, and you know, on behalf of the many, many people who would have gathered at the Packhorse community pub, you know, today, and I know who would have loved to have said it in person. And I'll try and do my best to say it, you know, from myself, but just a huge thank you to you and all the heroes of World War II for all the sacrifices you made and all of your courage and your service. And there was a toast that will be said at 3 o'clock today, which is just to say, you know, to those who gave so much, we thank you. And I'd just like, in person, to try and, you know, get that sentiment across. Thank you, Albert. And thank you for your time today.
Dom's just thanking you very much on behalf of everyone who would have saw you today at the Packhorse for your service, and he personally thanking you for your time today.
Yeah, so you're welcome to it.
And we'll go down and see them, won't we, Dad? We'll go to the Packhorse when it's all open.
And you absolutely will, Albert. You'll be our guest of honour.
So you want to tell them about your encounter with King George and Monty?
Oh, yes, yeah. No, sorry, I forgot about that.
That's all right, yes. What happened?
In Corsells, that's where our base was. We had an in-road and out-road for trucks. Our company made them do this. And we was coming down the road one day after loading, and we got a little way down, and the military police stopped us. I was the lead wagon again, and he said, "Would you mind putting over the bank?" I said, "Yes, I would mind putting over the bank." I said, "Little row up there." I said, "Is that tongue mines?" I said, "We was told never to go off the road." That's one thing we done. And he said, "All right, stay there." And he went back round the bend, and I drove very slowly. And when we got on the bend, there was a duck loaded with all the daddy knobs, King George up there, Churchill,
Well,
and King George was the only one that saluted us and went like that. Well done. All the rest turned a bloody nose. Yeah, it was just
well, Albert, we all salute you as well. Thank you so much, sir, for your time, and again, just to say a huge thanks for everything you and your generation did.
Dom's thanking you again for everything you've done and for your generation.
Yes, we hope to meet one day.
Yeah, I'd love to. A pint on me. Well, certainly lunch on me, Albert.
Oh yeah, he's a sausage and mash man, aren't you? Sausage and mash. Treating a sausage and mash. All right, thank you, Dom.
Great stuff. Thank you so much, Albert.